September 30th, 1981. Hello, this is Joyce Robbins interviewing her grandfather, Mr. Sam Bograd, on his life in Russia. Where did you first live in Russia, sir?
I was born in Russia, where my father was the operator of a large estate for one of the rich landowners in Russia. He was the one who managed the entire property, thousands of acres of land, and he would hire the farmers to come and work the fields to produce various farm products, which were later sold to various Russian cooperatives. Part of the income from that would go to the landowner, part would go to my father for supervising and managing the property, and the farmers would get paid for their work or would get a percentage of the production from the farms.
So your father managed the farm?
Yes, he did. Managed, supervised, arranged for the sale of the products to the various Russian cooperatives who used to buy it and ship it.
Where was the farm near?
The farm was in White Russia, about 50 miles from the city of Babrusk, which was in the state of Minsk. And when the... Okay, maybe now you could ask me.
Now, you said that you left the farm?
We left the farm in 1917 because my father was subject to the draft, and the Russian army required a number of people to come and work in a very large bakery in Babrusk, city of Babrusk, and which produced baked goods for the Tsar's Russian army. We moved to the Babrusk in 1917, and my father worked in this bakery, and my mother had a grocery store in the city of Babrusk.
So your whole family left the farm?
Yes, we did.
How old were you then?
I was 12 years of age.
Mm-hmm. So then, did the revolution take place while you were at Babrusk?
When the Russian Revolution took place and we wanted to leave Russia, we sold the property and the store that we had in Babrusk and left Russia, which was not, the government would not give any export, nobody can be. The government would not give any permits to anyone to leave Russia, so we had to do it to the underground. We left, we got to the border between Russia and Poland, and on one night in the winter we started to cross the border without permission, and were caught while crossing the border and brought back to this town of Slutsk, which was on the Russian side of the border. Then we arranged with some of the supervisors there by paying them a certain fee. And the following night we were given permission to cross. And when we got onto the Polish side of the border, in the town of Mieszbierz, we stayed there, and we were given Polish birth certificate, Polish certificates registered as Polish citizens, and from there, after a few weeks, we left and we went to Warsaw.
So you left Russia because it was very different after the revolution?
Yes, we could not, that is right, we could not, my parents felt that as we were getting older, we would probably be called into the communist army. And we just wanted to
leave. It would be better to get out.
And since my mother had relatives in Paterson, New Jersey, and my older brother left Russia 2 years earlier, was already in the United States, we felt that life would be much better for us. So we certainly thank Mother for getting us out of Russia, deciding that we should leave Russia.
So then you were living in Warsaw?
We stayed in Warsaw for about 1 year because it took that long to get a visa to enter the United States. We came to Poland in Warsaw, Poland, in 1921, and we did not arrive in the United States until February 1922.
What were you doing this whole time? You were living in... Where were you living this time?
We lived in a little town outside of Warsaw, and we didn't do very much outside of that. We tried to learn a little bit of the English language, so when we come to the United States, we should be able to speak the language at least a little bit. And
did your father have a job there, or did you just...
When my father came to the United States...
No, this was in Warsaw.
In Warsaw, no, he did not. Well, he was teaching some students the Hebrew language.
Oh. So were you in hiding there, or were you just...
No, we were, since we had Polish birth certificates and all that, we stayed, we were quite legal as far as Polish residents.
So then, after that, how were you, did you go to school there or anything?
When we came to the United States, not speaking the language very much and all that, it was not easy to get a job in this country. Since my uncle was in the business of selling,
It's on.
My uncle was a peddler, which means he was selling merchandise by calling on people from house to house until he established a certain following, so that not being able to get a job in the United States at the age of 16 and not speaking too much of the English language, my uncle persuaded me to go and do the same work as he did, which means getting some dry goods and go from house to house and selling it to people.
How did you get from Warsaw to the United States?
From Warsaw we went by train to Antwerp, Belgium. And from Belgium we came by boat to Ellis Island. And from there we were taken to Paterson, New Jersey, where my mother had her brother and 2 sisters living in this area.
So did your father have the money from the bakery in Brusque?
Not from the bakery. No, the bakery he only worked, but we had this grocery store, and we had a large house, and we sold the house and the store, so we had some money that we brought with us, and we used that for the biggest part of it for the year that we lived in Poland for maintenance.
Were there any exciting or interesting things that happened on your trip from Poland to the United States?
Well, I wouldn't say that it was a luxury cruise like under Queen Elizabeth. It was more steerage type of boat and all that. But it was not too bad. And
Did you spend any time at Ellis Island, or were you able to just go
No,
through?
Ellis Island, after you go through the examinations and all that, we take the ferry from Ellis Island to New York Harbor, and then there was either rail or train from New York to Patterson.
Was there any trouble finding your relatives in Patterson, or you knew where they
Oh,
were?
no. As a matter of fact, I think one of the relatives was at Ellis Island waiting for us, and we came with them. So
How old were you when you said you were
I was 16 years old when I came here. So after sailing all day long, I entered. Well, you might ask the question about what did I do there.
Right. What did you do as soon as you came to America?
And then after working during the day and sailing and paddling and selling dry goods, I entered the Patterson Prep School in September of 1922. And took the regular high school course. By that time I spoke English quite reasonably well.
How'd you just learn from the...
And also one of my cousins, twice a week I would go to his home and he would give me some English lessons. So by the time September, when I entered the Patterson Prep School, which was an equivalent to a high school, but evening courses given by the faculty of the Patterson Central High School, some of the very well-known teachers there, such as... And I covered the 4-year high school program by September 1924, which is a period of about 2 years.
So you skipped
so that between sailing all day and going to school at night and then coming home and working, doing some homework, I was really very busy at the age of 16.
And what language had you spoken before? You said you didn't know English. Did you mostly speak Russian? Or?
Mostly Russian, and of course with my mother and father in this country, where we were speaking mostly Jewish.
So then after you finished the prep school, what did you do?
Then in September 1924, I entered New York University School of Commerce, again in the evening courses. I would work all day and take the 4:32 railroad train to New York and take 2 courses each evening, one from 6 to 8, another one from 8 to 10. And I graduated at New York University School of Commerce in 1928.
The whole time that you were going to school, you were also pedaling?
Yes, I was pedaling that. By the time I graduated from, and I took a course courses mostly in accounting, because I always liked mathematics and I thought I would go into the accounting field. When I graduated, I was making a substantial, about 5 times as much as most of the students graduating from School of Commerce and who were getting, in those days, jobs as accounting, what do you call it?
Accountant?
But,
Which is that?
most of the students graduating from college in those days and trying to get in with the large accounting firms were hired as apprentices and were getting about $15 a week.
So you were really doing
So
well.
since I was making so much more than that in those days, I decided against going into the accounting field.
Since you were doing so well
That's
at
in
school.
the work that, in fact,
The work you were doing.
after 2 years of the selling that I did, I had such a large following and switched over from dry goods first to clothing, and I didn't like. Then we decided we were selling furniture by taking customers to New York showrooms and all that, and I liked the furniture business very much. So that by the time, after doing that for 2 additional years, in 1930, my brother and I opened a furniture store. Right.
But before, when you were pedaling, what goods did you mostly sell?
First, mostly dry goods, and then clothing, and then taking customers to New York showrooms selling furniture.
Before that, you went door to door selling things?
That we did only for about a year and a half or 2 years. After that, you have so many customers that you kept calling and
Like
saying,
you.
because we sell them on credit, and we
Right.
used to come every week to collect payments against
Oh.
the bills that they owed, so that they always buy something else, or they would recommend some of their friends.
So you developed
So
a lot
after
of
about 2
customers.
years, you develop a very large route.
Mhm.
So that it was not, so that after 2 years of that, I already managed to buy an automobile, so I
That
didn't
was
have to
very-
travel by bus, but take,
Most people didn't have automobiles then, did they?
so I had my own automobile, carried my merchandise in the car.
Mhm. So then that's when you opened the furniture
And we
store?
opened the furniture store in 1930, which was the beginning of the very Great Depression.
Mhm.
And we did nicely simply because we had, both my brother and I, we had such large following of customers, so that when we opened the store and we invited them all, they were.
You still did business during the Depression? Did it hurt your business a lot? The
Well, when
Depression?
we opened the furniture store, we no longer sold dry goods or clothing or call on the customers at their homes, but they would come and buy from us and pay at the store.
Mhm.
And at the beginning, we were selling primarily to customers who would buy on credit,
Mhm.
something that we continued for perhaps 20 years.
Yes. So you said that people thought that you wouldn't be able to survive the Depression?
Yes, when we opened our store in 1930,
Mm.
the building that we rented, there was another furniture store there for 8 months, and they went bankrupt. And when they heard there's a couple of young fellows who don't know too much about the furniture business, are starting business in the Depression like that, said that we wouldn't last for 4 months. So now, 51 years later, the 4 months are not yet, and we're still in the furniture business.
So you must have done very well during the
Yes,
Depression.
we saw that now, 51 years later, we have one of the largest and finest furniture stores in New Jersey.
Yes.
You can advise that anyway.
Okay.